Ahoy there, mates, and Jolly Friday. I just wanted to give you an update on some of the happenings here with ICBC and my efforts to be photographed with an emblem consistent with my religious beliefs, this being the tricorn, of course. So this letter was written to me, or penned, on August 31st, which coincidentally was my birthday. And this comes from the manager of driver's licensing, integrity, and oversight. His name is Mario Bordages. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. I don't care. Anyway, he's the manager. So he writes me, Dear Gary Smith, British Columbia driver's license and my driver's license number. The head covering you wore on August 9th, 2022, which is a similar head covering to those worn on previous occasions for driver's license photo card applications, was again deemed unacceptable for printing on a BC driver's license, BC identification, or BC services card. We understand that you identify as a Pastafarian and member of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster and have sought accommodation under ICBC's religious head covering policy to wear your colander, pirate tricorn, or any other chosen head covering in your BC driver's license and BC services card photos. As previously stated in letters to you, ICBC's religious head covering policy endeavors to accommodate customers wearing head coverings when their faith prohibits them from removing the covering for BC photo identification purposes. We also advised you on numerous occasions that we do not recognize you as a member of a religious group that requires accommodation in the context of a service customarily available to the public under the British Columbia Human Rights Code. The British Columbia Human Rights Code, sorry. We note that your current interim driver's license will expire on October 9th, 2022. We are willing to provide you with the services you require, such as a photo driver's license, provided you present yourself for a photo without a Pastafarian head covering. Should you insist on wearing a Pastafarian head covering, no driver's license and no further temporary licenses will be granted. In order to receive further service with respect to your British Columbia driver's license, you may attend the nearest ICBC driver licensing office to have your photo captured without your Pastafarian head covering at any time. Well, that was August 31st. So I wrote on September 30th, I have today made a submission to the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. That includes the information below. I might as well, just as an aside, preface this letter with the acknowledgement that the Justice Center did not feel that they could take on this particular matter, which is unfortunate. My letter continues thusly. And again, this was written on September 30th to Mario Bordages. My hope in providing you with a copy of this is to attempt to clearly delineate my position so that you may reconsider the unyielding position you have taken as manager of driver's licensee integrity and oversight and relent on the threat you have no sound reason to make. In fact, in the absence of any rationale you might have provided and didn't, would it not serve the greater good to live and let live? Also note that I have applied to the OIPC, that's the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner of BC, for a review of the response from ICBC to my Freedom of Information request. My submission to the JCCF is as follows. ICBC refuses to allow me to have my photograph taken for my BC government-issued identification wherein I present with headgear consistent with my religious beliefs. My contentions, which are based on my limited knowledge of the law, are as follows. 1. ICBC's mandate in this regard is to provide government-issued identification that meets current recognized international standards. ICBC utilizes the most advanced facial recognition technology, FRT for short, available to provide identification that conforms with current government-issued identification standards. ICBC services and accommodates members of the public who are of particular religious persuasions and of assumed ethnic origins based on physical appearances, to wear headgear consistent with their religious beliefs without question. ICBC provides the above accommodation where headgear is worn for religious purposes, where it does not interfere with the FRT, facial recognition technology. Number 5.5, ICBC makes the false claim that accommodation is provided only where religious beliefs prohibit the removal of headgear for the purposes of being photographed for government-issued identification, yet no such prohibition exists, if we're talking about men, that is. 5A, ICBC is not mandated to investigate customers who claim accommodation based on religiosity. That's not there. B, that ICBC should claim to accommodate a religious practice by virtue of a prohibition within a religious group far exceeds ICBC's authority. Point 6, ICBC is not mandated to decide matters of religiosity. As indicated above, to do so would be outside the scope of its authority and would be in contravention of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, those of 1984. Point 7. The BC Human Rights Code is subservient to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Where a breach of the latter is discovered, an appeal to the former is without substance. That means that the BC Human Rights Code is essentially a child of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Point 8. ICBC is neither authorized nor qualified to make determinations where it may or may not recognize anyone, quote, as a member of a religious group that requires accommodation in the context of a service customarily available to the public under the British Columbia Human Rights Code, unquote. Point 8A. Reference to the legislative support for that quoted claim is absent. So they just say it's something without supporting it. This is what ICBC tends to do. Point 9. The FOI request, the Freedom of Information request, made through the appropriate office at ICBC for all materials and correspondence related to the matter produced 691 pages of documents. This is where ICB is hard at work, thwarting our efforts. Sorry for that aside. I continue. Most of the documents, in particular, inter-office emails, were completely redacted. Point 9A, my FOI request was made to attempt to understand the underlying rationale for what appears to me to be an arbitrary application of a policy that ICBC does not have the right to make in the first place. Point 9B, redactions were made under provisions of the FOI Act and render the policy and any discussions that are deemed to be about policy completely opaque. In effect, ICBC staff can make arbitrary policy decisions free of any scrutiny on how those policy decisions are informed. Point 10. Despite my many attempts to rationally argue my position to all levels of ICBC management have fallen on deaf ears. All responses have been essentially form letter responses. Point 10A. The last response from the Manager of Driver's Licensing Integrity and Oversight, October 9th, 2022, includes the threat, we note that your current license will expire on October 9th, 2022. We are willing to provide you with the services you require, such as a photo driver's license, provided you present yourself for a photo without a Pastafarian head covering. Should you insist on wearing a Pastafarian head covering, no driver's license and no further temporary licenses will be granted. So I was just repeating the previous information. 10B, the last letter, of course, is a direct existential threat to my being able to earn a living. Point 11, a Pastafarian in Ontario, and he has kept his name concealed simply because he holds a position and doesn't want to lose it. Holds a position of some sensitivity. So a Pastafarian in Ontario currently holds a driver's license in which he is depicted in his Pastafarian head covering. In his case, he's wearing a colander. Point 12. I currently have my firearms possession and acquisition license wherein I am depicted with my religious headgear. Point 13. I have supporting documents available for your review and request. Of course, this is all, provided to the JCCF. And I was just being courteous in supplying this to Mario, as I point out here. I am hoping the Justice Center can convince ICBC that they ought not to address matters that are outside their mandate. Further, to accept that a person who states their religious affiliation should be taken on the face of the claim, and that insofar as the desire of a person to signify their religious affiliation with religious headgear does not interfere with the FRT in use, ICBC, or any government agency for that matter, should let a person so express themselves as they see fit. Mr. Bordages, and this is how I sign off, I ask that you reconsider your position based on the above. Well, that didn't happen, did it? Because, of course, I had to go in and get my license, and this is written by Mario Bordages to me on the 31st of October, well after he had received that letter in advance of my having to get my driver's license. So on October 31st, Mario Bordages writes to me, "We are in receipt of your letter dated September 30th, 2022. We confirm you attended a driver's licensing office on October 7th, 2022 and removed your head covering as requested by the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia." Oh, yeah? "The photo was taken and your application for a BC driver's license has been processed and your photo card mailed to you. This will allow you to continue to drive and earn a living." Well, thank you so much, God. If we are contacted by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms about your case, or the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner regarding your Freedom of Information request, we will respond to them. How gracious. Please note, and this is the catcher, please note that ICBC's decision was made after looking at all the submissions, the facts, and the law. As such, our decision stands. Well, it took me a bit, but I thought I'd start off the new year with the following. This I penned mostly on Sunday, January 1st, starting off the new year with a bang. And this I addressed to, of course, our dear friend, Driver's Licensing Integrity Oversight, the manager, Mario Bordages. And, of course, this is regarding Pastafarian religious head covering and my driver's license number. This missive references your letter to me dated October 31st, 2022. Your smug tone betrays you, and it is unbecoming. Firstly, I did not remove my head covering as requested, but as demanded and under duress. Your previous letter to me had made it clear that I would not be granted a license unless I complied. You went so far as to send a letter to the owner of Dave Dale Insurance, whose company serves as the local driver services branch, instructing him to refuse me service if I did not comply. Secondly, the need for a license to drive and earn a living really shouldn't have anything to do with my stated religious beliefs and my desire to express myself in a manner consistent with those beliefs. That you subsume the authority in your position with ICBC to make arbitrary decisions in this regard is despotic at best. That you have managed to shield yourself behind opaque policy is evidence to my claim. Yes, I trust that your compliance with inquiries from other organizations made on my behalf is not your choice. Your careful phrasing smacks of the worst kind of intellectual dishonesty, as you clearly did not state that the decision was based on the materials, and nor was the decision made after reviewing all the materials you referred to, as it has been as it has been the steadfast position of ICBC, as developed by driver's licensing integrity and oversight managers, to refuse from the very start. In my case, 6 years ago. It is impossible for me to know with any certainty what biases you and your predecessors are operating under, but they are at the root of all institutionalized bigotry and discriminatory practices. When the wearing of religious headgear does not interfere with the integrity of the facial recognition technology, there can be no other reason, and certainly none that you have provided, that can justify your belief that it is in ICBC's domain to make any kind of decision with the respect to a person's stated religion. It is also clear that in what little was left unredacted in the documents I received through my FOI request, ICBC's own research revealed occasion where a person's stated religious affiliation is taken at face value by other government agencies. Such was the case as in obtaining my firearms license. Why should ICBC be any different when there is nothing to gain from it? That is what is so frustrating. Why do you care so much that you use your power and authority in this abusive way to thwart my right to free expression? Really, what do you care? Sadly, I sense this letter will not be responded to, or that the answer to my questions, if responded to at all, will be the same inane, formulaic tripe that I've become accustomed to. Nevertheless, I am stepping up my efforts. In the end, you will certainly need to submit to a clear delineation of where your personal biases must leave off in the proper exercise of your position within the organization. As it stands, regardless of the pretense this matter has been decided by ICBC as an organization, it is to you to whom the responsibility and accountability of any decision must fall. Happy New Year! And that's what I've signed off on. So that's where it stands, my friends. We continue our journey. As I have stated previously in our Facebook page, the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner has demanded the full 691 pages that I had asked for through my Freedom of Information request, and are undertaking to investigate why those documents were redacted so completely and so fully. Also, the Ombudsman, with respect to my other license, which is my security license and private investigator's license, is looking into that matter because, of course, it's the same sort of discrimination. Anyone of, I might as well say it. I have many Sikh co-workers and Hindu co-workers who wear their turbans and their head coverings and do so with impunity. They don't have any problem. And I imagine that if I were to go in wearing a turban, I'd probably be questioned. And, the veracity of my claim to the Hindu or Sikh religion would be tested, I'm sure. Anyway, it simply isn't right. And there's no good reason that these people need to defend something that really isn't defensible. The Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, 2A and 2B, and check them out for yourself. Guarantee the right to the freedom of expression of religion. And it doesn't say we get to investigate your religion to make sure that what you say is plausible. Because when you apply the outsider test of faith to any religion, any claim is dubious to another's eyes. We only believe in the gods that we believe in, right? So, anyway, Raman, my brothers and my sisters, happy sailing. Raman.